Welcome to this very important session about current affairs. Current affairs, as you know, is one of the most important, if not the most important part of the entire UPSC exam. It overlaps, it crisscrosses all of general studies. If you think about it in terms of volumes, it is more voluminous than your optional subject in general studies and all your NCRTs combined. And that's the reason it needs to be dealt with very carefully. And it is one of the most ignored parts of the UPSC exam preparation, as I've seen over the years, dozens, in fact, hundreds of students, because there is no proper structure to prepare current affairs. What students end up doing, and what you may also be tempted to do, is to follow monthly magazines, perhaps, or to try and read the newspaper. The newspaper, of course, is the subject matter of today's session, and we'll go into a lot of detail about that. But before I do, some important, very important qualifiers about that. You may feel like you don't have the time to read the newspaper. If you have the question in your mind of whether or not it is important to read the newspaper, the short answer is yes. The second question which you may have is, what about monthly magazines or current affair compilations which you get from coaching institutes or the market? Are they important? Can they replace the newspaper? The short answer is they are useful. No, they cannot replace the newspaper. And here is why. They cannot replace the newspaper because you have not applied your mind in extracting those current affairs. You have not processed the current affairs. And in those compilations, although they are very comprehensive, the problem is they will not give you context. They will not give you a processing. You have to process it in your own mind. The problem is that anybody who makes those notes is the one who's done the processing, and they cannot delegate this processing to you. All they can do is extract information and then give you information. The information, in any case, you have too much of. You're overloaded with it. What is the best way to do it? The best way to do it is to use it as a supplement, which I will tell you about. But, and this is important, the main source of your current affairs has to be and should be the newspaper. The newspaper, because it will give you a daily dose of what's going on, what's important. Also, as you go along and you work on the newspaper every day, and I will give you a very, very detailed and clear structure about how to do that, you will start to get better at it. And the newspaper will give you continuity. So one piece or one article, if you read, say, about India-China relationship and something happening in the news, it will continue to evolve and it will repeat. And you'll be able to figure out not just that event, but many things around the issue of India-China relations. And that is the way, when we do current affairs, when we do general studies, when we do current affairs particularly, it is the way knowledge increases because it needs to go into general studies. It needs to touch the static subjects. I know this is all sounding complicated, but that's precisely the reason we are here, and it's going to get very easy. That is my promise to you. All you need to do is follow the instructions. I'm going to give some demonstrations today. And at the end of this session, I'm going to give you a challenge, a very important challenge and not an easy one at that. So, which newspaper to read, which sources to follow? Any newspaper is fine. E-newspaper, physical newspaper, both are perfectly fine. There is absolutely no issue. The only thing that matters is that you work on it yourself every day, little by little. I know that you have more questions in your mind about this. How to make notes from the newspaper. When you read a newspaper, how do you make sure that you distill the correct information? I have this newspaper in front of me. It doesn't matter what date it belongs to. They're all on the same pattern. And if you think about it, if you look at the amount and the volume of text, it's enormous. There are at least 5 to 10,000 words on this one page alone, and then there are at least 30, 40 such pages. Nobody can go through this amount of information. You obviously know, I know that you know already, that you have to filter this. You have to figure out what's important and then filter out the rest. But there's another issue. This, I suppose, is not something that anybody will tell you. But I think it's important, so I'm going to say it. It is riddled with advertisements. It is riddled with advertisements. These advertisements are designed to catch your attention. That's what the advertisements are supposed to do. Okay. The issue with you is that they may or may not be useful to you. That's not the problem. The problem is they will attract your attention. You need to make sure that attention is right where it should be. Then the other question is, how do you make notes of all of this jumble of text? And if you start to analyze the whole thing, it is one day is not enough to cover one newspaper. All of these questions, everything that I just said, is a list of the problems that you have, and everything that I will say now, whatever comes next, is going to be a detailed solution of those problems. So as I go into the details, as I go into the demonstration, please listen carefully, take notes if you need to, and we will begin. What I will do is show you how I would analyze the newspaper. Our focus today is on analyzing the newspaper, and I'm going to give you a very detailed, a very clear structure about how to do that. This will be done in 2 rounds. So this will be done in 2 rounds. The first round is very important. It's called the box out protocol. It's called the box out protocol. It's very simple, and it's deceptively simple. In fact, it's not really that simple, but it is that useful. And the second round is also something that I will explain. What is the box out protocol? The box out protocol is a series of rules. It's a series of steps which I will demonstrate, which you will follow every day to make sure that you are picking the right content very quickly, making sure that you are not distracted by advertisements, making sure that you know exactly what to do, and then sticking to that. All right. And so the box out protocol, ladies and gentlemen, is simple. It involves actually boxing out, and I mean that literally, actually boxing out important articles or important pieces. As you can see, there is something that I have literally boxed out here, and I haven't done that because I could have simply used a tick, and that there is a particular reason for it. And the particular reason is, of course, human vision doesn't work on simple rules. Peripheral vision always catches things which you don't want to see. Okay, so the boxing out makes it very deliberate, makes it very intentional. Okay, so that's, as you go along with it, you will realize the value of it. In the boxing out protocol, we will be boxing out important articles. 1. What's number 2? Number 2 is, when you open the newspaper, when you see the newspaper, you will do nothing but read only and only the heading and the subheading. That's it. None of the small text that you see on the page, you're forbidden from reading it. You can't read it. You can't even read a single word of it. Even though you'll be tempted, even though your attention will get caught up in one or the other thing. All of this small text that you see, none of it is going to be read. You are not going to read any of that in the first round. In the first round, what you will be doing is only and only figuring out the headline and the subheading. That's it. And those will be a couple of lines. So let me demonstrate how I would do that. Assume that this is the newspaper that you are analyzing, although I know that yours will be different, but the same principles apply, so that is not an issue. I am going to read only the heading and the subheading, and I will explain the rules as I go. Rule of boxing out, the most important rule is no political news. Ghulam Nabi Azad walks out of Congress blaming Rahul Gandhi. Sonia merely a figurehead, he says in a letter. There is no analysis of governance or anything in this article. I am going to skip it. I am not going to be boxing this out. The same I would do with this. Although whatever you see in the brief section over here is always continued on other pages inside the newspaper. It says on page 9, page 8, and so on. So we don't need to pay attention to this. This, however, is different, and it's interesting. It says 3-judge bench to review Supreme Court verdict on poll promises. Court suggests an independent study. Now, I don't expect you to understand or know any polity, any knowledge of judiciary, but, and this is a sense that will get developed as you go along. What do you think it means? What do you think it means? What I want you to guess and try to figure out without reading any of this fine text, what you think this might mean. A 3-judge bench to review the Supreme Court verdict on poll promises. Poll promises are obviously done by political parties. Without even going into the details, one can guess at the fact that it is probably something to do with political parties making poll promises and whether or not that should be allowed. Enough. That is more than enough common sense which has been used at this stage. So this is something that I will box out. I haven't read any of the text and I'm not going to, and neither are you. I will move on from this page because this again appears to be political. We will not get into it. This appears to be more important and interesting because it appears to be the inauguration of an important bridge. In this case, it is the Atal Bridge. So I will mark it. I will mark it with my pen and I will want to note it somewhere. And I'll tell you how I will note it later. Again, more political news, so I'm going to skip it. As a matter of rule, you are skipping the state news, you are skipping the city news. I know there are sometimes important, sometimes useful tidbits of information, but the amount of content that you will be going through and all the different sources, and including some of the sources which I will suggest, will make sure that the important stuff is covered. So there's no problem with that. And maybe after you get a little bit advanced in this technique, you will be able to follow it. We now come to the editorial section, and this is an important section. Here too, we are going to follow the box out protocol. We are not going to read any of the fine text at all whatsoever. What we are going to do is read only the heading and subheading and try to form a picture in our mind of what it might be. Only based on our common sense. Let that common sense be wrong. Do not be ashamed. Do not be embarrassed. Yes, engage, try to inquire, try to be curious. See, something important has happened in your country. Something important enough to have appeared in the newspaper has happened. You, as a future civil servant of the country, should be aware, should be curious, should be concerned. And with that spirit, we'll try to understand what this might be. It says here, a draconian law that needs to disappear. The Northeast needs to be freed from the net of AFSPA as it has subsumed constitutional rights with impunity. Now, without forming any judgments, what do you think this means? What do you think that this article is about? That this editorial is probably about? Whether or not you know anything about it, you will soon realize that this AFSPA, Armed Forces Special Powers Act, is an act which was enforced, is enforced in northeastern regions, and it has been the cause of much debate, much dispute, where local people have protested against it. It has been under scrutiny, human rights violations, and many other allegations. Without going into the details, just this much appears to be an important article because it also, you see, it already is talking about constitutional rights, that it has subsumed constitutional rights. So you can already figure out that this appears to be some important legislation for internal security. We would definitely box it out. We would box it out in our physical paper. I have done that. In my physical paper that I have in front of me, I have put a black mark around this so that I can come back to it, and I'll tell you what I will do when I come back to it. I will read the heading and the subheading for this one. This one says, shadow over Soren. He should resign as CM and not continue in the hope of getting elected within 6 months. I'm not going to go into the details of it, even though there might be some important information. I'm not going to go into it because it is primarily political. Murder in the sewer, death during manual cleaning of sewage are unacceptable. Now, this, what do you think this means? It appears to be, if you think about it just from the common sense point of view, it appears to be an issue of manual scavenging. It appears to be a human rights issue, even if you don't know what is manual scavenging. But when you do read about it, you will be quite concerned and actually hit by the implications and the importance of this, and it will shock you that this occurs, but it does. And there is something important which is going to be said about it in this article. We'll see later. But this heading and subheading is enough to tell me that it is important. I'm going to revisit it. I'm going to take a look at it in a few minutes. For now, we are in round 1. We are doing the box out protocol. We are only figuring out what is important and we are boxing it out. Let's take this one for instance. Puttu Swami and the fading promise of right 5 years after the crucial judgment on the right to privacy, the ground reality is an eye opener. This, my dear friends, is of course, this is very important and it keeps on occurring. This issue of data privacy, issue of the right to privacy, and all these interrelated debates you may have come across. In any case, you can figure just from the heading and the subheading that it is important. And Puttaswamy, for instance, and why it is written in italics is because it was a very important Supreme Court judgment about the right to privacy. But we will see what it was later. For now, we have enough information to tell us that it appears to be important. It's not political. It is a governance related issue. We are going to box it out and we are going to come back to it. What happens as we go ahead? This is another article and it's detailed and it appears to be, this one I would leave to be at the 50-50. Maybe I box it out, maybe I don't. It depends on the relevance. In this case, I'm going to let it go because I want to focus on some other things. I come now to this page. Here too, I find a large amount of political information, but here I find something interesting. Greatly relished the job, says CJI Ramana in farewell speech. So the incumbent Chief Justice is about to retire, and apparently a new Chief Justice who is going to be appointed has made a statement. And so naturally, these names become important. I am going to box it out. Nothing else. I'm not doing anything else. I'm not worrying about anything else. I don't need to do anything else at the moment. I'm going to skip this Bihar Assembly stuff, although that might be important, but right now I don't want to, and I don't need to go into this detail. I move on. I encounter now an article about need system for maritime concerns. Amid signs of strain, Sri Lankan envoy says trust deficit should be avoided, build equilibrium in ties. This strikes me as important, and it should strike you as important too. It's about India-Sri Lanka ties. I haven't read anything about it, but I need to make a decision in the given limited time that I have about its importance, and I'm going to mark it as important. Take a look at this one. Army speeds up procurement of light tank Zorawar for LAC. Needless to say, this is important. It's about security. In indigenous lightweight tank Zorawar with a line of actual control, and if you don't know what LAC is, you will get to know, has been deployed by the Indian Army, and we already know that this is going to be important, so we are going to box it out. We're going to put a literal box around this, and we're going to move on. We will do the same with this article. Achieving 2070 net zero target could boost India's GDP. This one talks about environment, it talks about emissions, and it talks about India's GDP all in one sentence. So I would really rate this very high on importance. So I'm going to definitely box it out. And it talks about jobs. See in the subtitle, in the subheading, it says here that whatever this is, whatever it is that it is, I haven't read it yet and I don't need to yet, it will help create 15 million jobs. So this really strikes at the core of something very important. I'm going to box it up. Allahabad High Court clarifies on transport of cows in UP. No permit needed to transport cattle inside the state. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. It's fine if you do, and it's fine if you don't. In any case, if it's important, it will get repeated, and we will find it, if not today, then tomorrow. Center picks 75 tribal districts for TB intervention project. This appears to me to be important. It's a health issue, and it appears to be an important initiative. Look at the number, 68,000 villages in tribal districts. Door-to-door screening of over 68,000 villages and tribal districts. So this appears to be a very big project. Whatever it is, I know that I should know something about it from the point of view of the UPSC exam. I'm going to mark it as important. I'm going to box it out. What is this then? Lumpy skin disease will not impact milk production. Amul. You have here the words Amul, milk production. So without reading anything much, I am going to guess that this disease, this lumpy skin disease, is probably a disease which affects cattle, which affects cows. So I'm going to mark this as important. In any case, Amul and the local dairy industry is an important industry. I'm going to mark it as important. Notice here, that there is a reported death of a renowned Islamic scholar. Definitely seems to be important. We are going to mark it. We are going to mark it and we'll see what to do with it later. Vishnugad project likely to face inquiry. World Bank panel mulls scrutiny over complaints of damage to Uttarakhand temple livelihood loss. Now this is talking about the World Bank. It says that there is a Vishnugad project. Apparently some inquiry is being initiated. Inquiry is being initiated because of complaints. Complaints because of damage to the Uttarakhand temple and livelihood loss. And just from the image, it appears to be some sort of a water project. And whatever it is, we will find out later, but we are going to mark it and we'll see what it is. We're going to mark it as important. Practo told to make its app disable friendly. PWD Act. This also appears to be important because it speaks of disabled people and how applications should be disabled friendly. I don't know if you know, Practo is an application. I know this just from my general knowledge. Perhaps you do also. But in any case, we'll mark it as important. If you don't know, then you would have come to know in any case. I move on. I reach international news. Now, I have been through this paper and I am going to mark this one. China pledges support for Sri Lanka at UNHRC session. Now, just a few pages ago, do you remember that we marked an article about a Sri Lankan envoy making a statement about some Chinese presence in the area? This appears to be a similar type of issue, and in fact it is the same issue. You will see later that this is the same issue. It's the same event that caused it, so we'll mark it as important and then we'll see what to do with it. China Russia threatening world order, Taiwan president. This too I will mark as important and then I'll see what it is. So so far I have about 10 which I have marked as important. But this here is business news. In business news, usually we can skip corporate news. Corporate news about businesses, acquisitions, mergers, we can skip. Whenever you find that there is something important, like this appears to me to be slightly important. Rupee to stay under pressure despite RBI support. That is talking about rupee and the valuation of the rupee against the dollar or against foreign currencies. I'm going to mark it as important. In any case, it mentions RBI, it mentions slowing global growth. So this appears to be a global issue and important for the Indian economy. I'll mark it. I'll ignore all these other minor news because they don't appear to be that important to me. Then I arrive at sports news. I quickly go through it. Here I don't feel like there is any news. There is a detailed article about a tennis player who is supposedly very good, but then there is an article about a Indian boxer. So I will mark the name, but I won't go through the whole thing, but I will note who this individual is. If he is important enough to have appeared and has a full page cover on him, it's probably worth knowing. Here I find that Neeraj Chopra has qualified for something called the Diamond League. Don't know what it is. I don't need to know what it is, but I do know that he is important and he is in the news and that he appears to have done something very important here. Whatever the Diamond League is, I'm going to mark this, particularly out of all the others. FIFA lifts ban on AIFF. Deck cleared for Women's Under-17 World Cup. AIFF Acting General Secretary says the darkest hour of Indian football is finally over. Those sound like big words already, and I wouldn't take a risk. I would mark that as important. Then I quickly blaze through, and that's the end of the newspaper. So what have I done, ladies and gentlemen, so far? What have I done? Well, not much. Not much. I went through the whole thing with you. That exercise took us around 10-15 minutes, even though it will take you less when you go through it. And I will show you exactly what the markings look like. I have actually boxed it out. See here, this is the Neeraj Chopra article which I just showed you. I have marked the other things which I also mentioned. Now, you may not always have a consensus about which article is equally important, and don't worry about the anxiety about what will happen if you skip one or two important ones. It's completely fine. That's the benefit of you having to do this exercise every day. Sooner or later you catch the important stuff, and if it is important, then the newspaper will repeat it. And if the newspaper doesn't repeat it, then the monthly magazines will repeat it. And if they don't repeat it, then some compilation will certainly repeat it. You're fine. The idea is that now you are engaging with the text. That was round one. That was round one. That is what you must do every day. Every day you read the newspaper, completely ignore the advertisements, quickly do this boxing out protocol. Do not read any of the fine texts. If you find and if it hits you that this might be important, just box it out. We'll see later, maybe it doesn't turn out to be that important. Fine. That's fine. We won't make a note of it then. But we'll mark it at that stage and we'll move ahead. We won't read that article. Once this is done, and this exercise, this boxing out protocol, this round one, should not take. It should not take more than 5 minutes. Not 5, perhaps 10. 10 minutes. At most 15, but not more than 15. Certainly not more than 15. Also, as you keep going and as you keep doing this every day, the time will shorten, the time will reduce. You will see that you are growing faster in analyzing. You'll also notice that since the stories are repeated, not everything is appearing to be important because you would probably have covered that ongoing story in a previous day. Okay? And that is how it will go. 10 minutes it will take you, no more than 10 minutes, to complete this boxing out protocol. Follow this diligently, follow it sincerely. I have really thought about it long and hard before I gave you this structure. It is simple enough, but that's not the best part. The best part will come now. Now we enter round two. Now we enter round two, ladies and gentlemen, and round two is this. Round two is the daily feeder page, which you would have in your possession. If you do not have it in your possession, then I will put a link where you can find it, where you can download it. It is a format which I want you to fill every day. So you remember these articles which we just boxed out, all those articles which we just boxed out. This is what we are going to convert all those in. These are fill in the blanks. Think of these as fill in the blanks. I'll tell you how to fill them. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they're all numbered. There are around 10 of them. 10 of them. And I'll tell you what each of them means. So as you go to the first article that you put a box around, now you go back in round two. This is round two. In round two, you go back and see that article which you put a box around, and you try to annotate that article. And by annotate, I just mean simply put it in a very, very short sentence. Very short sentence. So say, for instance, that article that we are talking about is, let's say that article that we are talking about is this article about Russia. It's about, say, yes, that article about China and Sri Lanka. About China and Sri Lanka, that's come twice in this newspaper. So that we'll see. Let's see what it has to say. It says the China pledges support to Sri Lanka at UNHRC session. Envoy slams the rude interference from third parties. Perhaps, I don't know, maybe the third party that they're mentioning is India. But we'll see. In any case, what we are going to do is we are going to analyze this article and put them in these 3-4 boxes here. And I'll tell you what each of them means. So the first one is called event snapshot. What is event snapshot? Event snapshot is basically just take the whole event, compress it in a very short 2 or 3 words, no more than that. Don't exceed the space given. The space has been restricted in this daily feeder page, particularly because you have to learn how to discipline your word count. You have to learn how to really summarize, really condense, because that's part of your challenge. You have to. There's no escape it. No escaping it. Even though you may have the urge to do everything, you cannot do everything. You can do a little every day, and that will add up to a lot. So the event snapshot would be simple, that China Sri Lanka relations China, Sri Lanka, India relations, whatever you want to write in very short to tell you what the issue is. Significance finder. What is the significance finder? So I told you about event snapshot. What about significance finder? Significance finder says what is the larger debate which makes the event important. Now, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 points can be written here, but no more than 10, 20 words. No more than 10, 20 words, really condensed, really short formed, you know. And for this, I will read this article. I'll read this article and let's see what it has to say. It says that weeks ahead of the UN HRC session in Geneva, where a resolution on Sri Lanka is expected, China has said that it would continue to support Sri Lanka in international fora while slamming countries far or near for bullying the island nation. China has always been supportive of Sri Lanka, and then it goes on. And so apparently it talks about some loans which China has given to Sri Lanka, and apparently a very large Chinese military vessel, docked in Sri Lanka, and that has India concerned. So what is the central debate that it is about? The central debate is China's growing prominence in the Indian Ocean region. That is the central debate. That is the central issue. Bilateral relations between China and Russia, and China and Sri Lanka, and how they affect India. As you go deeper into it, as you read it, if you read the whole thing, this is what you will arrive at. That is the central issue. Okay. There are different, of course, this is different for different articles, but just as an example, that's what this is. Now comes theoretical underpinnings. You see these hexagons? Geo, Soc, Pol, Gov, these are abbreviations, obviously. These are subjects. Geography, society, polity, governance, international relations, social justice, security, environment, economics, science and tech. They have been broken down into this categorization very carefully, very thoughtfully. I will tell you why. It will become very important in our next session. It will become very important. You will see this will come to our rescue. There is a very, very good reason why it is there. So where would you put this article of the China Sri Lanka thing? Where would you put this article in this? It may fall in more than one. Perfectly fine. Mark it. More than one. If you ask me, I would put it in international relations. I would put it in security. And I would probably also put it in polity. So I'd tick polity, I would tick international relations, I would tick security. And so far, what I've done for this article, I have written a snapshot of it, China-Sri Lanka relations. I have written what is the significance finder. In significance finder, I have written their impact, China's growing prominence, impacts Russia, impacts India, and in the Indian Ocean region, whatever I know about it. Whatever I know about it right now, today, I have written. And as your knowledge grows, your notes will become more condensed. Now, this is important. It says identify 3 keywords which stand out as relevant. This is very important. What are the 3 keywords you think which stand out as important here? 3 keywords. I don't know what you will filter, and maybe your keywords are slightly different from mine. But keywords are important words which you think you should know more about. From the point of view of the UPSC exam. Maybe some abbreviations, maybe some organizations, maybe some technical sounding words. But as you continue to do this, and like I said, your intuition about this will grow. This is the exercise I want you to do every single day, and you'll see that it gives you very rich dividends. So one keyword which I'm seeing constantly is the name of this Chinese military vessel, Yuan Wang 5. Yuan Wang 5. I've noted it. I'm going to write it over here. The first Yuan Wang 5 I'm going to write. Another important keyword which I keep seeing here again and again is Humban Tota Port. Humban Tota Port. I keep seeing it. I'm going to put it here. I don't know what its relevance is, but you will see that it is very important. This port becomes very important strategically for India. It will become obvious to you. But well, we'll write it. 51st Council of the Human Rights Council, severe economic difficulties. Yes, so the third keyword that I think, in my opinion, is important and worth noting would be the UNHRC. United Nations Human Rights Council, Geneva. UNHRC, Geneva. Maybe your pick for the third keyword is different. That's completely fine. No problem at all. Now, let me do another one. Let me do another one and let me try to fill another one using the same formula. You remember we were just talking about this TB uh, initiative, this TB initiative that we boxed out, which you will find right here, which we did. You remember we just spoke about it. This TB initiative, in which apparently 68,000 villages and tribal districts were covered. Let's cover this one. Let's see what we'll fill up here. What would you put as a event snapshot for this? What is your opinion as an event snapshot of this? TB intervention project, tribal district. I would basically say TB intervention project dash tribal districts or something like that. It doesn't have to be a very strict formula. Just make sure you capture. Event snapshot means take a snapshot of it in your mind, so the whole thing gets captured in a few words. What was it about? That will also come in handy later. We did that. What is the significance finder? Significance finder. Significance finder is very obvious in this case. The significance finder says that it is important for health, and that too tribal. You see, the crux here is that tribal areas are being targeted for this type of intervention. So the significance finder in, I would say, not just TB. Of course, tuberculosis is a health issue. I would say tuberculosis in tribal areas. The reason that this has become important, and the UPSC may wish to ask about it. So, in significance finder, one thing that I would write, and I may write more than one, but one thing that I would write is tribal areas TB intervention project. What subjects would you put this in? This TB related article, this TB related intervention initiative. Do you want to put it in polity? Yes, I think so. It can be put there. Do you want to put it in governance? Definitely it should be put in governance, I think. This is a governance initiative. Put it in governance for sure. So we'll tick governance for it. Do you want to put it in social justice? Social justice? Yes, I certainly think so. We should put it in social justice, in my opinion, and it will help us a lot because it is an issue of social justice. So you see, all of this thinking that we are doing, this intellectual engaging, this intellectual exercise and intellectual workout that we are having is all happening between us and this format. In between us and this format is the newspaper. We extract important information from the newspaper according to this format and we fill it in it. That's all we are doing right now. And I'll tell you exactly what we'll do. These pages will come very handy. In a few days, we'll come back to these pages and we'll do something very interesting with them. And I'm not going to spoil the surprise for you. Anyway, the third one, the last one would be keywords. Now, which keywords would you pick from this? Let me give you an example. What I would do. So one keyword which is striking me as important is Ashvasan campaign. Ashvasan campaign. That sounds very important. I mean, that sounds exactly like the type of question the UPSC might write. I am going to write Ashvasan campaign, one keyword. What else am I going to do? Conclave, tribal affairs, population groups, community engagement. That sounds like an important word. I will write community engagement, and here I have seen, you see there's one sentence says, it says, high incidence of TB in the selected 75 tribal districts, keeping with the government's mission to make India TB free by 2025. India TB free by 2025, although that's not one word, but I would put it as one keyword. India TB free by 2025. I would put it there. This includes generating demand for TB services by engaging with community influencers like tribal leaders, tribal healers, Panchayati Raj institutions, self-help groups, etc. to guide the implementation of these measures. So the government plans to deploy 2 officials each to district level and 3 officials to PV. So the third keyword, if I was going to choose, I would put as community engagement. And it's not necessary. Maybe you find more than 3 also in some articles, and that's fine. Just make the space and scribble it down somewhere. So what I've done is I have extracted the information from 2 articles which I just boxed out, and I have just written and I have mentioned. Just a very brief overview. Just a very brief overview of what just happened. You have the daily feeder page. You need to fill the daily feeder page every day. This is the daily feeder page. Every day you need to fill this. It has space for 10. And if you look at it closely, you will see that in the middle, it gives you place for editorials. You don't have to follow this format strictly and stick to 10. Maybe there are on some days 8 news articles that you wish to insert. Maybe there are a bit more. If there are a bit more, you see this area, this space, area for space that is here, that extra area, that's for, that area is for extra notes, which you can feel comfortable in taking. Write them if you feel like space is not enough, but the space is limited, and that's by design, that's purposeful. So make sure that you try to do it in this space. Try to do that. There's something interesting I wanted to show you. If you scroll down, why not scroll down since you will have the physical paper in front of you? See here, sports. You remember that article we just saw about Neeraj Chopra and that Diamond League, whatever that was. Whatever that was, I would put it here. Put it right there. See deaths. See that deaths. And you saw that we had that one Islamic scholar had recently passed away. I would definitely put it here. Any awards which you come across, I don't need to tell you, this is where you put it. Miscellaneous, anything which you find doesn't really fit anywhere else, that's where you put it. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what I want you to do every day. As a quick refresher now, what happened? We encountered the newspaper, we did a boxing out protocol, we in 10 minutes read only the heading and the subheading. We boxed out the important articles. We tried not to box out more than 10. Not more than 10 we tried to box out. We made our best judgment based on our common sense. We did not read any of the fine print or the fine text. We focused on the editorials. We did not focus on the city news. We did not focus on the state news. After we had done that, we opened our daily feeder page. We started to fill this page based on this format on the articles that we had selected. I demonstrated 2 articles and how we could fill this. There are 4 sections for each. One of them is event snapshot. This is a condensed, summarized, very abbreviated form of what the event was. Nothing. You be creative if you want to. You doodle if you want to. You want to make scribbles, colorful things, diagrams, do that. Do whatever you want. In this box, just make sure whatever that thing is, the larger issue, capture it. So that when you see it next time, you immediately remember, oh, this is that. I remembered. I read that. This is that. So that is the reason for you doing this stuff, rather than reading somebody else's notes. Significance finder. Again, this is slightly subjective and it will continue to evolve. Most of the time, the significance finder the article itself will tell you what is the significance. It is almost always it is there in the article itself. If it is not, do your best, figure out the best possible thing to write in no more than 5 to 7 words. 5, 7, 10 words at most, write it, move on. Select the correct or the appropriate subjects. Maybe 1, there may be 2. It's completely fine. Move on. Keyword extractor, pick 3 keywords. Perhaps there are 2, perhaps there is 1, perhaps there are 4. But try to restrict it to 3. Any words which you think you need to know more about is what you need to do. And with that, I bring you now to your assignment. And your very important challenge. Here is what you are doing. For the next 7 days, starting today being day 1, after this session, after this session, after you see this, for today's newspaper, I want you to do everything that I just did. It will take you roughly around 1 hour, maybe slightly more because you are just starting. As you continue to do this, your time will reduce, like I said. For every day, I want you to do this. Take a printout of the daily feeder page. Take a printout, a physical printout of it. Take a physical printout of it, of which I have many, precisely like this. Take a physical printout, fill it up, click a picture of it, send it to me on email every day for 7 days. For 7 days, I want you to send a picture of this completely filled out daily feeder page with your own hands, with your own handwriting to my email without fail. 7 days, I want you to try this. Don't try it. Well, there's no trying because there's an option. This is something you are doing. You have to do. You have to do. And on the 7th day, we will have another session in which we will see these keywords again. And then I'll tell you what to do with these keywords. And that is going to be very interesting. That is something that you never have encountered. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we are doing. I've given you the walkthrough. I've given you the demonstration. Now you get to work. Immediately upon my signing off, do this right now. It will take some investment of time, but invest it. Fill this page. Enjoy the process. Enjoy. This is a new way of doing things. Enjoy this. All you have to do is every day for 7 days. I want this filled up. I want this filled up. If you don't figure something out, if something doesn't fit properly, it's fine. You will figure it out. I will give you examples. I'll give you whatever is needed. But you are filling this up for me. You are sending it on email to me every day. I want to see it. Maintain one thread of email if possible. And 7 every day I want it before midnight. Before midnight every day for the next 7 days. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is your challenge. And with that, I'd like to sign off. I've given you the structure. You have the tool now. And now it is your turn. I have done my work and I will see you exactly after this period when you have accomplished this, and I will then go to the next step. And there are many other steps to follow, by the way. This is not the end of the current affairs segment. This is only the beginning. This is only a trailer of what is to come. A lot is going to come. A lot of it is coming. With that, let me sign off. All the best to you. Get to work right now. Do not procrastinate and send me that filled up daily feeder page before midnight. Take care, and I'll see you next time.